The magic of Silver Bell. In the small village of Everwood, nestled between rolling hills and a dense, whispering forest, there lived two 15-year-old girls named Clara and Eliza. They were as different as the flowers in their garden, yet inseparable like the roots of the very trees that surrounded their home. Clara was quiet, thoughtful, with a passion for growing plants and tending to their garden, while Eliza was curious, daring, and full of boundless energy. Together with their mother, Marjorie, they ran a humble but well-loved stall in the village market where they sold the fruits, vegetables, and flowers they grew in their garden and picked from the nearby forest. Their stall was always filled with vibrant blooms, daisies, sunflowers, and lavender, and baskets full of plump apples, ripe strawberries, and fragrant herbs. The people of Everwood trusted Marjorie and her daughters because their products were always fresh and the girls' laughter was contagious. Every morning, as the first light of dawn kissed the earth, Marjorie and her daughters would head out to the garden, picking what was in season, before venturing into the forest for wild herbs and mushrooms. One sunny afternoon, as they were setting up their stall in the village market, Eliza bounced up and down, her eyes sparkling. "Clara, I heard that the old tree in the forest near the stream is where the fairies live. I want to go check it out today. Maybe we'll find something magical." Eliza had always been fascinated by the old stories that the villagers told about the forest and its ancient trees. Clara smiled, pushing a strand of her long brown hair behind her ear. "You and your fairy tales, Eliza. I doubt there's anything magical out there." "You never know until you look," Eliza said with a mischievous grin. "And maybe we can bring back something special for the stall, something to make it stand out. A rare flower or a new herb." Clara raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. Their mother, Marjorie, overheard the conversation and gave them a knowing smile. "You girls can go after you finish selling your flowers and vegetables for the day. But remember, the forest can be tricky. Don't wander off too far, all right?" With their mother's warning in mind, Clara and Eliza worked hard all afternoon. They greeted the villagers and exchanged stories with familiar faces. By late afternoon, their baskets were nearly empty, and the sun was starting to dip behind the hills. "Well, it's time," Eliza said, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Let's go find that fairy tree." Clara shrugged, her practical nature always at odds with Eliza's adventurous spirit, but she followed her sister nonetheless. Together, they walked to the edge of the village and into the thick woods that bordered it. The trees here were ancient, their trunks twisted and gnarled, and the air was filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. Birds flitted overhead, and the sound of rustling leaves filled the air. "Keep up, Clara. We're almost there," Eliza called, skipping ahead. Clara sighed but quickened her pace, following her sister through the dense underbrush. After about 20 minutes of walking, they reached the stream. The water babbled cheerfully over smooth stones, creating a calming melody. A large oak tree stood on the other side of the stream, its trunk wide and weathered with age. It was said to be over 300 years old, its branches reaching high into the sky like the arms of an old, wise guardian. "Here it is," Eliza declared, her voice filled with excitement. "This is the fairy tree." Clara looked up at the massive oak, its roots twisted and exposed, forming a hollow at the base. There was something strange about the tree, something that made Clara feel a little uneasy. But her curiosity got the better of her, and she stepped closer, peering into the hollow. "That's where the fairies are supposed to live, right?" Clara asked skeptically, eyeing the dark space within the tree. "Maybe not fairies," Eliza said with a grin, "but I'm sure there's something magical hidden inside." The girls crouched down, and Clara reached into the hollow, feeling around with her fingers. After a few moments, she felt something cool and metallic. She pulled out an object, her fingers trembling with surprise. It was a silver bell, small and delicate, with intricate engravings swirling around its surface. It had an otherworldly shine to it, and when Clara shook it gently, it emitted a soft, melodic chime that echoed through the forest, sending a shiver down her spine. "Eliza, look!" Clara exclaimed, holding the bell up for her sister to see. Eliza's eyes widened in awe. It's beautiful. Do you think it's magical? Before Clara could answer, the wind picked up, swirling around them in a way that felt almost intentional. The chime from the bell rang again, but this time, something strange happened. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and the leaves on the trees rustled as though in response to the sound. "What's happening?" Clara whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know," Eliza replied, her voice barely audible. "But it's like the forest is alive." Suddenly, a flash of light burst from the bell, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble. The silver bell glowed brightly, and Clara felt a strange sensation in her chest, as if the bell was calling to her. She clutched it tightly, her fingers now warm against its cool surface. Then, just as quickly as it had started, everything went still. The wind stopped, the leaves quieted, and the chime of the bell faded into an eerie silence. Clara and Eliza stared at each other, wide-eyed, unsure of what had just happened. "Did we just unlock something?" Eliza asked in a hushed tone. Clara nodded slowly, still holding the bell. "I think we did." They carefully tucked the bell into Eliza's bag and walked back to the village, their minds racing with the possibilities of what they had just experienced. By the time they returned home, the sun had fully set and the sky was painted with shades of pink and purple. When they entered the house, their mother looked up from the stove, her brow furrowed. "Where have you girls been?" We found something in the forest," Clara said, her voice full of wonder. "A silver bell. It's magical, Mom. We think it's connected to the forest, maybe even the fairies. It made the forest feel alive." Marjorie raised an eyebrow. "The forest is alive in its own way, girls. It's full of mysteries. But be careful. Magic like that, it doesn't come without a price." That night, after a simple dinner of soup and bread, Clara and Eliza went to bed, their thoughts filled with the silver bell. They wondered what secrets it held and what it could do. The next morning, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Clara noticed that the flowers in their garden were blooming faster than usual, their colors richer, more vibrant. The vegetables grew at an astonishing rate, and the air seemed to carry a sweetness that was more than just the usual scent of their garden. Eliza, meanwhile, felt a strange energy in her own body, as if the bell had somehow connected with her. She had more strength, more agility, and she could run faster than she ever had before. Even Clara, who wasn't usually one for physical feats, felt an unfamiliar lightness in her step. But with the changes came a sense of unease. Clara began to hear whispers when she was alone in the garden, and sometimes, when she stood still, the plants seemed to sway toward her, almost as though they were reaching out. Eliza, too, felt the pull of the bell, but she couldn't explain what it meant. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Marjorie looked at the bell with a worried expression. "Girls, this bell, it's connected to something ancient. I've heard stories of a long-lost magic in these woods, a magic that was meant to remain hidden. It can grant great power, but it can also take away just as much." Clara and Eliza exchanged glances. They had already begun to feel the power of the bell, but they didn't want to lose it. They loved how it made them feel, how it brought life to their garden, and how it seemed to open new possibilities. But they also knew their mother was right. Power like that couldn't come without consequences. The forest, the bell, and the magic they had unleashed were part of something much larger, something that neither of them fully understood. In the weeks that followed, Clara and Eliza continued to sell their flowers and vegetables, but they were more cautious with the bell. They used it sparingly, not wanting to draw too much attention to the magic it held. Still, they couldn't deny the changes it had brought to their lives. Their garden flourished, and the village began to notice the abundance of produce, with whispers of how their flowers were unlike any others in the area. One day, as they sat together in the garden, Clara turned to Eliza with a thoughtful expression. Maybe it's not the bell we need to control. Maybe it's us. We need to be careful with how we use its power." Eliza nodded, understanding. "We've seen what it can do. We've also seen how it can change things. It's up to us to decide how we use it." And so, The Silver Bell of Everwood became a part of their lives, a constant reminder of the magic they had unlocked and the responsibilities it carried. Clara and Eliza had learned that true magic wasn't just about power, it was about understanding the balance between nature and the world around them. They would never forget the day they found the Silver Bell and how it had changed their lives forever. From that day forward, the girls tended their garden and their stall with greater care, always mindful of the magic they had uncovered. And in the quiet moments, when the wind would rustle the leaves of the ancient trees, they would hear the faint chime of the bell, echoing softly through the forest, a reminder of the secret they had unlocked and the adventure that had forever changed them.